Little right. That looked easy. We're plugged.
Hi guys, welcome on board. 104th Maverick checking in with another video. This time I am extremely proud to be bringing you the first look at the air-to-air refueling procedure in the incredible Heatblur F-14 Tomcat.
Fuel 15,000.
In this video, we're going to talk about the technique used to plug into the tanker and go over the air-to-air refueling checklist, as well as giving you guys a preview of some of the awesome jester calls while passing fuel. So let's dive straight into it and get to the observation left position on the tanker. Okay, first things first, how do we get to the observation position? Well, we need to tune the tanker tack-an first of all so that we can get to where we need to be. In the Tomcat, there's actually 3 different ways of doing this. The first way is if you're flying alone, to get our trusty partner in crime Jester to tune in the tanker tack-an for us. To do this, all we need to do is call up the Jester menu, then select the center icon or a blank option to go back to the main menu from the BVR section, then select navigation utility, then tack-an radio, and then tune tack radio. This will then display all the tunable tack-an stations for assets in the current mission. In this case, we want to select Texaco 11. Jester will then tune in the correct tack-an frequency for the tanker, and then all we need to do is select tack-an as our steer command on the pilot display control panel, or PDCP. And we'll see that we get the range to the tanker on our horizontal situation display, and we also get a little arrow on the outside of the compass ring to show the direction to the tanker. We can also adjust the HSD course to get our course lines lined up with the correct inbound course to the tanker. Now the solid line that you see on the HUD, that represents that we are flying towards the tanker. If that line was dotted all the way down, that would represent that we're currently flying outbound away from the tanker. The second way to tune the tack-an frequency is by doing it yourself from the front seat. To do this, we come down to our left hand side to the tack-an control panel and tune the tack-an frequency manually, which in this case is 61 X-ray. So we'll enter 061 for 61, and then select X for X-ray, and we also want to make sure that we are in air-to-air mode to receive the tack-an signal. And then just like we've seen previously, we come back to our steer command, select tack-an, and then we can see on the HSD we have our range information, we have our caret showing us the direction of the tanker, and we can also adjust the course lines so that we get the inbound radial. The final way to tune the tack-an is if you're the real rock star of the show sitting in the back seat. Both the REO and the pilot have the option of tuning in different tack-ans, however only one is active at any one time. Tuning the tack-an in the back seat is identical to the front seat. We want to set 061 for 61 and again set X for X-ray, as the tanker tack-an in this case is 61 X-ray. We also want to make sure that we are in air-to-air mode. The last thing we want to do is tell the aircraft which seat is in control of the tack-an. We do this by pressing the tack-an command switch here and changing it from pilot to NFO, which will then tune in whichever frequency is set in the back seat. If you're flying as a multi-crew and the pilot wants to take control of the tack-an, then you simply move the tack-an command switch back to the pilot position. Before we arrive behind the tanker in the pre-contact position, we want to make sure we've completed our air-to-air refueling checklist in the aircraft, which consists of 6 items. The first item on the checklist is to make sure our weapon control switch is in the standby position. This is done from the back seat and is something Jester will look after if you do not have a human reel. The second item is to make sure our master arm switch is in the off or safe position. We then want to make sure our fuel dump switch is in the off position. Next up is our air source selection for our environmental control system. To prevent fuel fumes from entering the cockpit through the ECS because of possible fuel spills during in-flight refueling, we select the air source push button to the left engine before the fuel transfer. The next item is the fuel probe, and we can extend that as desired by activating the refuel probe switch here. This switch has 3 positions. The first position is the retracted position to stow the probe inside the aircraft. The second position is fuselage extend, which extends the refueling probe and activates the normal transfer and feed pumps for fuselage only refueling. The third position is all extend, which also activates the transfer and feed pumps, however allows for the refueling of all tanks on board the aircraft, internal and external. The final item on the checklist is wing sweep. Now it might be surprising to learn that this is really down to pilot preference. There is no concrete set rule to which position the wing should be in to transfer fuel. The aircraft manual states that the optimum airspeed and wing sweep position is 240 knots indicated and approximately 40 degrees of wing sweep for taking fuel. Although this will not always be the case, as you cannot dictate what speed the tanker is doing unless you are the mission editor. While researching for this video, I found out from a real Tomcat driver that the main modes used for refueling were in fact auto or bomb mode to contact with the tanker. And while it is a good idea to select manual sweep to stop the wings moving with any change in airspeed while refueling with the tanker, refueling with the wings in auto is very doable. Most of the clips you see in this tutorial are of me plugging in with auto wing sweep selected. With that being said, however, it is a great idea when you are just starting out to learn the refueling procedure to start off with the wing sweep in bomb mode. Being in bomb mode disables the manoeuvre flaps on the aircraft that are automatically controlled and activated based on AOA and Mach number. This will help to avoid any small changes in flight characteristics as new pilots get used to their throttle control and aircraft positioning. This was something that was often used in real life to help new pilots to the aircraft, with typically only experienced pilots refueling in auto mode or with the wings swept forward of 55 degrees. So here we are in the observation left position of a US Marine Corps KC-130 Hercules preparing to take on fuel. At this stage, while you're settling alongside the tanker in the observation position, it's a good idea to put in as much trim work as you can to get the aircraft as stable as possible. The flight model on the Tomcat is amazing. It's by far the best flight model that we have in DCS, and you can really feel that the aircraft is alive beneath you. Heatblur have also raised the bar in DCS by introducing wake turbulence when following another aircraft, so this is something you really have to watch out for when you're approaching the tanker. Now the Tomcat is a big girl. She has very powerful engines and very large control surfaces to match. So what this means for you the pilot is that less is more when it comes to control inputs. I can't emphasize enough just how important it is to have the aircraft trimmed properly so that your inputs are as small as possible. Failure to trim the aircraft properly is going to result in some pretty ugly pilot-induced oscillation, and you're going to find it very difficult to contact the basket as a result. The goal once we reach the pre-contact position is to have the aircraft trimmed so that we could theoretically fly with our hands off the stick. You should be confident enough in your trim settings to take your hand off the stick for just a split second and not have the aircraft wander off alignment. Now this takes a little bit of practice and is something that you need to be patient with to get right before you try and make contact with the basket. Refueling in the Tomcat is actually pretty easy, as long as you have the aircraft trimmed properly. She's very stable when trimmed, and the engine response time is incredibly fast, giving you a high level of control over the aircraft's position. A great visual cue for you to reference is the refueling pod under the tanker wing that the hose comes out from. We want to keep this just very slightly off centre to the right hand side of the HUD as we approach to make contact. Remember, we do not look at the basket. Instead, 100% of our focus is looking straight ahead at the tanker, and we use our peripheral vision to line up the basket. This is a skill that takes some practice to get right. However, once mastered, you'll find it very straightforward to plug into any tanker, whether it's flying straight and level or in a left or right hand turn. Apart from the amazing flight model, one of the most impressive things about the aircraft is how fast the engines react, as I mentioned earlier on. Like I've said before many times in previous air-to-air refueling videos, during the procedure the throttle is always moving. You're constantly making small adjustments in power as you approach and to stay connected, and the Tomcat is no different. However, because our engines are so powerful and the response time is so quick, these throttle movements are very small indeed, more so than any other aircraft in DCS. It takes a little practice to be able to predict how fast the aircraft is going to react to changes in power, but once you get on top of it, you'll be surprised at just how small your throttle corrections need to be to stay in position. Trimmed properly and with the correct throttle adjustments, the aircraft is incredibly stable, which gives you a lot of confidence behind the tanker, and it makes the whole transfer much easier. Once you're connected with the basket, it's important that you drive forward roughly 3 to 5 feet. In real life, this actually initiates the fuel to start flowing. However, in DCS this is not modelled, but moving forward 3 to 5 feet will make it easier for you to stay connected and to keep the fuel coming. Once you've moved forward a little, take a quick look to your right or left hand side, depending on which side of the tanker you're plugged into, and pick a spot on the tanker aircraft. Try to keep your canopy lined up with that spot on the tanker, as well as keeping your lateral position behind the refueling pod. Again, most of your focus should be looking straight forward at the refueling pod, and we use our peripheral vision to keep our longitudinal position by keeping our canopy lined up with our chosen point on the tanker aircraft. What I'll do now is play several clips of me plugging into the tanker. Try to follow along with the steps I've just mentioned so that you're going through the procedure with me. You can also start practicing your peripheral vision lineup by focusing on the refuel pod as I approach the basket and try to track the basket without actually looking at it directly. Watch out for me driving forward after connection and trying to keep my canopy lined up with a certain position on the tanker.
Little right. Thank you, tanker. We love you. Little left. Just a bit to the right. Little right. Just a bit to the right.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
We're connected. We're connected. Fuel 11,000.
Disconnecting is nice and straightforward. Once the tanker calls disconnect, we bring the power back first and then apply a little bit of forward pressure onto the stick to bring the nose down. We then look to our right before we start to move right into the observation area or to depart away from the tanker, just in case there's any holding traffic in the observation area. Once clear, we run a quick 4-item checklist. We make sure the refuel probe switch is back in the retract position. We make sure that the probe transition light is off. Then we select our air source push button back to both engines. And finally, we make sure that our wing sweep mode switch is back in the auto position. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this video helps you to get to grips with the air-to-air refueling in the mighty Tomcat. This aircraft is going to totally change the game. I'm so excited for its release, and I cannot even find the words to describe to you guys how good it is to fly, or how amazing it feels sitting in the front seat or the back seat, or just how goddamn gorgeous it is. The first time you fly in formation next to another Tomcat, you're going to be totally blown away. I'm so excited for you guys to see it. Thank you so much for watching. I really am going to go and play volleyball now on a beach in some skimpy shorts. Until next time, Maverick out.